So we talked about her research that we tore apart because it was pretty poorly conducted. Then we talked about an episode where she's actually improved a lot. And now her big public speech, the Anita Sarkeesian, Hate and Heroism, is another step back. It's just like, frustration. Anita. I love how she opens the speech by saying, just keep in mind, these things are not unique to me. But these are facts about me, and this is what my entire argument is predicated on. Like, she didn't even bring up the special victims unit of her, Zoe Quinn, and Brianna Wu. She's just me. Nope. Not gonna talk about other people. Just me.
I'm sorry, there's a little bit of construction outside, so we apologize for the background noise.
So, in the speech, she's talking about how women are, they're denied their accomplishments because they don't have the life experience, they don't have the professional qualification. What was the third one? There were 3 things. It was pretty simple. Anyway, so, in the speech, she tries to debunk the myths about her. So, like, the first one is, I write my own work. I made my own nonprofit. That's a scheme job. But I made my own nonprofit, and I made my own YouTube channel. But since my producer, who she failed to mention is also her boyfriend, since I have a producer who's a man, everybody says, oh, well, he's just puppeteering me and blah, blah, blah.
I do think that she needs to point out at some time that McIntosh is her boyfriend. Yeah. That is a bias. Mm-hmm. That creates a bias, and...
I mean, not really. Well, here's the thing. It wouldn't be that big a deal if it wasn't professional. It really... it wouldn't be that big a deal if it wasn't professional. But since they're trying to act like...
Well, and there have been couples that... There have been people that have worked together on projects that were married. Mm-hmm. And it was very professionally done. So just saying that, oh, because they're in a relationship together, that they can't do research together, that doesn't necessarily mean that, because... But it should be addressed not that bad, though, at some points.
Well, it's not even that bad, because it's not like Anita Sarkeesian is doing Feminist Frequency while her boyfriend writes and promotes her work. Like, it's not really that much of a conflict of interest when they're both working on the same product in the same way.
If they're both working on it, I do think that it would be more fair if they...
It's weird that she never brings it up. Like, I just think that's weird more than I think it's wrong.
I think that if her boyfriend is going to be working with her, and if they're essentially both the faces of Feminist Frequency, that they should just be the faces of Feminist Frequency. Yeah. It's kind of like, because otherwise people are going to make the assumption that he's the man behind the curtain, because when you look at the credits, I mean, like, what is he doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that he had written... Like, I thought that there were credits written by John McIntosh, but I'm not sure about that, so I might be wrong.
Okay. Well,
that's what I thought for a while, but I could be misremembering, so I'm not
too
sure.
If Anita Sarkeesian wrote her all of her own stuff, that's fine. You know, I'm not saying that she didn't. I think that sometimes people do tend to go in a conspiracy theory route just because it's one of those things. Well, if she's incompetent with this, then where else is she incompetent? I think sometimes people are trying to discredit her in more ways that's even believable or realistic.
Right. And I mean, yeah, like I said, she's dating her producer, whatever. It's fine. They're on the same project. They're not on separate projects endorsing each other while they're having sex.
Right.
It's not that bad.
So in her speech, mm-hmm. She talked about how essentially men need to support women. Men need to play these games and all this stuff. And so it's not more that gaming needs to be inclusive, which most people agree with. Like, you talk to even the most even the people that she's trying to target with like misogynist gamers, like you talk to those kind of people and they're like, yeah, if a chick's good at a video game, we'll invite her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually
if a female developer is a good developer, like the Uncharted series or Centipede, yeah, whatever.
Right. And there's a lot less hostility than what she's saying there is, but also like she has this notion that she wants to change games that are designed for guys. But it's clear when she says the kinds of games she plays that like that's not really the kind of games that a lot of guys play. I mean, there are a couple. Like Portal is an all-encompassing game. Everybody loves that game.
Yeah, Angry Birds. Like I haven't played it, but
the game
lots of people play it.
I'm sorry.
It's very popular. It's not a gendered game. Whatever.
I do have to say that there is a bias that like when it comes to games, you know, women that do play games, they usually play older games. They usually play games that are formatted in the way that old games were played. So even if they're new games, they're platformers, they're puzzle games, and they're on the cell phone, like Angry Birds. And like half the time
in this, by the way,
right?
I love this shit. Side scroller is my favorite kind of video game.
But like half the time, these games are not what the modern games are not what the most popular games are. And how much do they cost? Like $1.99.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're free. I mean, the types of games that she likes, which is fine, you know.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. The type of games she likes doesn't really encompass what like the mainstream media the mainstream video gamers play. Which if she's going to be a pop culture critic, she needs to be criticizing the most popular games. Not like a game that's kind of popular, but not... Like, even Hitman Absolution isn't the most popular game.
She can't even, like, promote Last of Us or something like that.
Well, she did talk briefly about The Last of Us.
But she doesn't promote it.
And she only talked about the short...
the short that came before. Or, I mean, I know it doesn't come before, but the prequel that's just
the prequel
Ellie.
short.
But that's what I'm saying, is that, like, what can she even bitch about with Last of Us? But she can't promote it either because that's a big mainstream game.
Well,
it's frustrating.
She can't promote it because throughout the game you're mostly playing as Joel, who is a guy.
You play as Ellie, though, and it's just as much Ellie's story and Joel's story separate and together. Like,
I would agree, but I'm trying to understand her logic.
Even using her logic, if you go back to her research post E3 where she's like, no, people need to be forced to view different perspectives. Well, you're forced, quote unquote, to play as a man and to play as a woman.
Right.
That's cool. So everybody gets both experiences. And you learn that they're just fucking people. It's great.
And, we got one great game that's coming out. Well, I say it's great, even though I haven't played it yet, because I've played the first game in the reboot, which is Tomb Raider. But guess what? They made this exclusive to the Xbox One.
Yeah.
So
fuck that shit.
So this apparently wonderful game that's about a woman is limited to a system because of marketing. But guess what? That narrative, she's probably... I wouldn't be surprised if she goes, oh... Well, you know, female games aren't popular enough, so it's only on one system versus two systems, which is bullshit because...
No, they do that to try to sell the system, not the game.
Right, because they want people to buy the system so that they can play the game, because they'll get really excited about it and stuff like that. But, you know, it is coming for the PlayStation 4. It's just going to be a year before it comes out for the PlayStation 4, which means that you'll just have to play all the other good games.
Right, and going back to what you were saying about...
if you like the Xbox One, that's fine, but I'm a PS guy.
But going back to what you were saying about her game selection, I told you earlier, like when we were watching it, that it would be really cool if instead of, I'm just going to hate on mainstream and, you know, try to promote all these little indie games, which is fine. It would be cool if, like, she did a show where it was just like, I'm going to promote indie cheap games to people who like that shit. That would be cool. Yeah. I would support that 100% because that would be like a little, you're catering to a niche audience in a positive way instead of saying, oh, well, I'm going to tackle the entire medium as a whole but I'm going to be extremely biased. If you're going to be biased, then like maybe just stick to the stuff you like and just do that, because that's awesome.
People do this with movie reviews too. There are critics that are biased towards indie films. Mm-hmm. So like anything mainstream that comes out, they're going to have something negative to say. They're going to be like, oh, well, Hollywood movies have too much action. They're, this and this and this. Mm-hmm. Whereas some indie movie comes out, even if the indie movie has the qualities that they don't like in the Hollywood movies, they'll kind of give it a free pass just to say, well, I understand, but, it's a small film, so you should support it.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, if she's going to be this biased, if she actually just plays to what she likes, it really wouldn't be that big a deal. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But in her speech, so she talks about, like, oh, well, I started my own thing, and I'm really proud of myself, and I go on all these talk shows, I'm in the media, and, doing all this fucking shit that's not helpful. And she's like, I've done all this work to help combat online harassment. I'm like, what have you done? Even Zoe Quinn came up with her bullshit fucking hotline that didn't work. Like, at least she made something, sort of. It didn't work, but, what has Anita Sarkeesian actually accomplished?
Okay, just for a minute, I want to address Zoe Quinn's game, which is...
quote-unquote.
Right.
Her product.
So, Zoe Quinn, if you haven't heard, which I would be surprised if you haven't heard, but still, Zoe Quinn made a game called Depression Quest, which was a game trying to illustrate that depression hinders you from making rational decisions. Mm-hmm. By doing this, it turns from being a game with options, very limited options, to a game that essentially has no options, which is trying to illustrate that in depression, you have no options, which is an interesting concept, but given the gameplay, it's hard to even illustrate that point. So the fact that that game got so good reviews indicates that
after
people
she came out and said, oh, the reason why people are not liking this and are not giving me good reviews is because I'm a female developer. It's it's sexism. Then all of a sudden, whoa, all the awards came in. Seriously, that's how it went down.
Okay, so for this second, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to them.
Okay.
And say that isn't the case.
Okay.
Let's say that the reason why they praised this game was because they were adding their own input into the game. They were really breaking it down. You know how I've been accused of doing this myself. So you know how some people might watch a movie or see a TV show and they start adding shit that's not even in there?
Well, yeah.
And expanding it and stuff. I think that's part of the reason why Depression Quest was lauded outside of just, let's support a female game developer. Mm-hmm. So I even though I disagree with that, I think that should be understood as a different approach to not only say that the game was lauded for it just being developed as a woman, by a woman. So going back to her...
What was the point of that, though?
I really want people to tackle these issues in a less sarcastic and hostile way, because nothing's getting solved that way.
Okay.
No, these people are being lauded and appreciated, and they are going all over the place because the only criticism comes by harsh sarcasm and relatively hostile language.
Okay.
Or, they'll be like, oh, look at her, busted, lying bitch, fuck her, this fucking cunt doesn't know what she's talking about. Right. Shit like that. That's not helpful.
That's true.
And in fact, it's so not helpful that they will use that to encourage that they are doing the right thing, and any criticism that they have is doing wrong. Even though it was funny seeing the Hitman screen.
Yeah, let's talk about the Hitman where she tries to debunk her being debunked with footage that debunks her debunking of the debunking of the fact that she does not understand Hitman.
Well, I will say that I can see her point that there are objectified there's objectified clothing in the game for women. And there are kind of
original cutscene where you kill a naked woman in the shower. Okay. But the thing is that
which she said was a gameplay thing, which actually was a cutscene, so it wasn't gameplay. So
right, but it's just funny when she's like, okay, so there's this one clip where I'm making, because she said this was her own gameplay footage. She's like, I'm making the guy beat up these two exotic dancers and put them in a box, and the game rewards me. And everybody looked at the corner with the little meter. I was like, no, when you did that, your points went down. And she tried to be like, oh, well, look at this. When you hide the body, you get a thing that said you've hit 104 bodies, 40 bodies, which that's not really, that's just a number. It's not something that helps you. But in any case, she then goes on to be like, it's a stealth game. We're encouraged to experiment and blah, blah, blah. And then she shows a scene where the dude hides in a cake and he pops out and he kills all these people. And when you look in the corner, when you were already in the negative with your points, it deducts points when you kill people who are not your target. But she says, oh, well, no matter what you do, no matter how violent you are, no matter who you kill, there's never a game over option. So I think she doesn't understand.
There are game over options.
No, but
if you create the alarm so much or.
No, but she's you're never going to have a game over when you kill a prostitute. That's what she was saying. But a game, just because it's not a game over does not mean that you're not being punished for it.
Right, and I will say that I agree with a certain notion that video games need to have a broader array of women that they include in the game. The fact that so many games have pretty much every female character in skimpy clothes and all that kind of stuff. I get that it's pleasing. I'm not really against it, but I do think that in order to be realistic, that having a broader range of female bodies, which she has talked about at some point, seems just to be a logical approach. I mean, if you have guys that are different body shapes and all that kind of stuff, you would think that video games would do that with women, which there are a lot of games that do, which she doesn't want to include, but games do it. I just think it should be a little bit more balanced instead of every woman being a fucking supermodel.
Right. I agree with that. Because, there's sort of this societal definition of what a standard of beauty is, but person by person basis, everybody has a different standard. Mm-hmm. Even if you have a low standard, you still have a standard. Just of what you find personally attractive to you, not what you think everybody should look like.
No. There was a show that I really liked, and I know I'm getting slightly off topic, but there was a show that I really liked called Being Human.
Yes.
And this is the BBC Being Human, not the American remake of it. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting about the show was they had men and women that look like people.
Except for Killy the dwarf.
Well, yeah. But men and women in the show that had non-perfect bodies, slightly asymmetrical faces. Their teeth weren't perfect, which is part of British stuff anyways. But, I'm just saying their teeth weren't perfect. And they were still pretty.
Yeah.
But they weren't...
plastic.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Which... I would like to see that incorporated in more games, and we're moving towards that. So I can see how I can actually see a positive with Anita Sarkeesian, mainly because I think that the one positive that we can get out of Anita Sarkeesian is we can get somebody who's a little bit more intelligent, a little bit better researched, a little bit more controlled. Take the concepts that Anita Sarkeesian brings up and make it a lot more approachable. Anita Sarkeesian kind of reminds me a lot of Sigmund Freud, which, if you study psychology, yes, a lot of the ideas that we have in psychology now come from Sigmund Freud. But Sigmund Freud made up a lot of shit.
Yeah, he did.
And,
I mean, yeah, he was supposed to be like this big thing in psychology, but we're at a point where today we look back and we're like, you believe in Freudian psychology? That's a joke.
I'm hoping that the Sarkeesian effect, for lack of better terms, encourages people to address issues of gender, because let's face it, it's an issue that I'm okay with. I know some people aren't, but it's an issue that I'm okay with. We are trying to move towards a post-gender society, even though, saying that, there does seem to be a war on men.
Yeah. Which Anita Sarkeesian is helping to perpetuate.
Right. This wave of extreme, radical, fringe feminism is becoming much more and more mainstream, because these celebrities are kind of like a gateway drug to some really negative thoughts that actually halt progress. Creating a hostility against a group of people, even if that group of people is a majority, instead of trying to find allies and then targeting a specific group, but being that hyperbolic discredits you.
Anita Sarkeesian definitely helps this when she has her whole... She does put men in a box. Now, she doesn't say all men versus all women, but she definitely puts up this idea that there is a men versus women thing going on when she talks about, toxic masculinity is the cause of mass shooting, which is up for debate. I'm not saying that's completely absurd for her to say, but she doesn't really want to debate that topic. When she says that her opponents are misogynist male gamers, when she says, men, what you need to do to support and to be active is to really listen to us, to listen and believe. And she says this in her Hate and Heroism speech as well, towards the end, where she's like, you just need to listen to us and give us the benefit of the doubt.
And the problem that I have with giving them the benefit of the doubt is when women who are educated disagree with you, that brings up room for debate.
Yeah.
But these type of feminists, these radical fringe, third, fifth, I don't even know what the fuck wave they're on right now, feminists do not want to have a intellectual debate on issues of feminism, on issues of women's roles. It makes them look bad. This is something that needs room for debate.
Anita Sarkeesian is like the queen bee in a beehive. And the reason why I say this is because she believes that there needs to be entire equity, there needs to be groupthink, that there is no personal choice, people need to be forced into these different things. Feminism is not about personal choice, it's all about working for the collective. People need to listen and believe, give the benefit of the doubt, don't question. Everybody needs to organize, but around her, and she needs to be the one on top, because she's, every time she's trying to say oh, movement this, movement that, she's like, oh, but I'm an expert and I'm a leading feminist, and it's why does this have to be about you? Why can't this, if you're so into groupthink, why can't you be a part of the collective? If that's what you're really into. I'm into individualism, so I disagree with her all the time, and especially when she's she tries to say, oh, people discriminate against me by using these different fallacies, which is fine. But then she says, well, people want to discriminate against me because they think I'm incompetent or they don't like my work. And I'm like, you mean instead of disagreeing with you because you're a woman, because they don't.
Sometimes they don't.
Yes, but I don't, for example. And that's not what she was pointing out. She wasn't pointing out the people who were being misogynistic towards her. She was like, people don't like me because they don't think I'm credible. They don't think I'm qualified for this,
Well, she
it's like,
comes
so
in...
you're being discriminated against because of your merits and not because of your gender. But since you are a woman as a part of the collective, going against you is going against women. Like, what the hell does that sense even make?
Well, she comes in and she makes all these blanket statements, and then she says that I'm the expert, and anybody who disagrees with me, not only are you wrong, but you're a misogynist asshole that needs to be placed in a box and stay in that box until you behave yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And she's really got to lay off with, like, if she wants to talk about harassment and abuse, that is fine. And I am all for a movement to make the internet, like, a safer space without censorship, honestly, as much as it's even possible. Yeah, but when a lot of the things that she points out and quotes are things that are not harassment, like, it makes you look bad. It makes it less credible when you're like, because she does get threats, and those threats are bad, and there's no excuse for that at all, period. The fact that she's never been hurt, ever, and the fact that she's never been killed, and nothing's really happened to her, is not an excuse for, like, oh, well, the harassment's okay, just because nothing bad's happened
We don't know. We don't know that.
If something would have happened, we would know.
Okay, well, I'm saying that we don't.
Okay, but I'm saying, like, even that, because I've even said before, like, it's not like anything's happened with that shooting threat, you know, like, that was an uncredible threat. But anyways, it doesn't excuse all of the threats and the, you know, the actual bad stuff. But
and there are bad threats. There are things that are misogynist, threatening, and there are people that are giving her death threats, whether or not they're completely legitimate. There are probably a couple of people that do want to kill her, that legitimately want to find her and kill her.
Yeah, and none of that is acceptable. But when you say that the people who are saying this are Gamergate, when that's not true, like, you try to lump in the fact that people are attacking her for
Gamergate to fucking like, everything now.
When like you take the fact that people are attacking you because you're a woman, or because you're a feminist, or because you say very misandrous statements on Twitter, which is a limited forum, I can admit that. But then you say, oh, but it's not because of any of those reasons, it's because of Gamergate, when there's no connection. That makes you look less credible. When you specifically point out people, this person and this person and this person and this person are all harassing and abusing me, when we can look at them and look at their work and see that that is not the case, it makes you look less credible.
Well, instead of attacking her critics, which is what she does, like, when anybody disagrees with her, oh, you're wrong, you're a misogynist, you're an asshole. Instead of doing that, address some of the issues and say that, like, well, what I meant to say was this. I know I wasn't clear when I said this. Something like that. That's a less hostile approach.
Yeah.
Because this kind of hostility that she has with her tone and with these speeches that she has really invites people to lash out.
Yeah, and even the quotes that she posted of Twitter of the how do you say, like, the response to her Hitman thing, if you actually pause it and you read all of those.
Yeah, I encourage you. We'll put it in the links. I encourage you to pause it at that screen and literally see what the quotes actually say.
Right, because a couple of them do mock her a little bit at worst, but a lot of them are very respectful, and most of them are just, hey, what you said isn't correct. This is the way it actually is. Now, like, a lot of them go on and say, duh, but a lot of them were just like, hey, that's not how it goes, dude.
Well, actually what I said is 100% valid, and if you disagree with me, you're part of the problem of this mentality of men trying to discredit women. That's, in a nutshell, what she was trying to say.
Yeah, her whole thing was, people are trying to discredit women for their accomplishments. So this is me saying, no, I'm actually accomplished. Although I thought the thing where she was trying to prove that she was a gamer, it was hilarious that she brings up, oh, well, in my little promotional ad thing, people make fun of me because I'm not playing with the controller, which was a fine enough thing to counter argue. She still does not bring up the fact that there is video footage of her saying she is not a gamer, she doesn't like games, and she thinks they're gross. Now, if she
surprised she didn't use that video, because that's the video everybody uses.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she did say, oh, well, I played... Well, it was hilarious because she said, I played Mario and Kirby, which is fine. But then she's like, who here plays Mario and Kirby? And there was no response. And I was like, that's your audience, Anita. That's why you're not changing video games.
Your audience doesn't even fucking play video games. They just go, oh, video games are a misogynist, hateful thing, and we need to change them so that women can play, even though they're not going to go to the fucking game store and buy the games that you change.
Exactly. Like, that's the whole thing about her trying to change video games, is that it's not marketable at all.
Okay, so I want you to put in the comments below, what video game has a woman developer and, you know, a strong, prominent female role that has actually made money?
Well, I mean, there's...
That actually costs a retail price for a game, because Depression Quest is free.
No, that's fine.
And Brianna Wu's game is for the cell phone. And I don't want to just talk about this trinity of people that...
No, I agree, but
I want you to tell me one game that has a woman...
We've mentioned some mainstream ones.
That were designed by a woman? No.
Bayonetta.
I mean, okay.
I'm sorry, Bayonetta. I keep going back to that one, but that's because Bayonetta is one that's harped on a lot for its images of females. Oh, that was something I wanted to bring up about her episode. I'm sorry, just to backtrack. She brings up, oh, well, you get rewards, like, you can dress them up in skimpy outfits, and that's aimed at the heterosexual male. I'm like, no, it's not. That's aimed for the women who want to play dress up. Like, the girl in Silent Hill who was wearing this little nurse Lolita outfit, that is meant for girls to like.
Yeah, because,
and girls like it.
Because the outfit that she gives, most guys like aren't into that shit. I mean, there are a handful, but like that's more like cute than like what guys really want, which is something fucking sexy.
Right.
Which is like a bikini or something like that.
Well,
like,
the other thing too is like look at Final Fantasy.
Plus Lolita is like Lolita is the fucking tamest fashion choice that you can go for. I mean, name one that's more tame than Lolita. That's like a big trend among young people.
No, I agree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. But like, even if you look at Final Fantasy X too, where it was entirely designed to appeal to a different crowd of people, basically girls, that has like singing and dancing and dress up as one of the main things.
Dress fears, yeah.
Yeah, that's put in as an attempt to appeal to women.
And it did. To a certain extent. No,
but I mean, like in Silent Hill and like things like that. Usually, the dress-up options are more.
You mean Resident Evil?
Resident Evil. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I got those mixed up. But
it's easy, like, but those games are very.
That was more of something I thought was funny than like, oh, fuck her for saying that. I was just thought it was funny that she was like, oh well, these dress-up options are for the presumed heteronormative male. Because if guys want to dress up their characters, there's zero wrong with that. But I'm pretty sure like that was a marketing to try to appeal to other people.
And plus there seems to be this trend now to shame men's sexuality. Yeah. Like, men are visual. Women sometimes are visual. Mm-hmm. You know, like ripped abs and all that kind of stuff, which video games have.
Yeah.
But are less so. You know, it's more about like personality and all this kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons why vampires are so fucking popular, because they take their shirts off and then they have this dark brooding thing, and yeah.
But going back to what I was saying, like she was saying, oh, when I was a kid, I played Super Mario and Kirby, but
who the fuck didn't?
Well, no, I know, but like that's fine.
Okay.
But she says, you know, oh, I sort of came and went with video games. I didn't consider myself a gamer because I wasn't a part of the culture. If she wants to say that was her reasoning for saying, you know, on film, out of her own mouth, I'm not a gamer, games are gross, that is acceptable. If she acknowledges it, that is acceptable. And she's like, but now I see, like, this is different, and now I have a
because
different
she's trying to fucking cater to both crowds, which is not working for her.
No, it's not working for her at all, because she's trying to cater to the crowd that doesn't like video games and to the crowd that likes video games.
That kind
even
of
though she's alienating them.
kind of mentality is what got the SRB started, because people made a lot of complaints when the game Mortal Kombat came out that the game was too violent, and I don't know if there was talk about misogyny because I was too young to
like understand that. Yeah,
but like, I just don't remember that part. I remember the violence because it was like, well, of course, you know, the game's violent.
Well, here's the thing: games and gaming culture have been under fire for the past 30 to 40 years because it was always like, oh, well, video games will make people violent. And that has been debunked over and over and over again. Now the new twist is they'll make you sexist.
Well, I will say that. I will say that it's not that video games make you sexist. And this is one thing that I will kind of sound like I'm flip-flopping on my ideas. So let me explain myself. So video games are, when you're playing against other people, it's a competitive form. Mm-hmm. And when people are competitive, they oftentimes revert to the lowest common denominator. And, you know, there's trash talk and all that kind of stuff, which, yeah, some trash talking will be sexist. It will be all that kind of stuff. Most of the times it's even trash talk doesn't necessarily mean what you actually think. And you could argue that that's casual sexism and whatever, you know, but it is part of our culture. Granted, when it comes to like race, those kind of things are more frowned upon than sexism. And I get that there's some people who are trying to control those kind of jokes as well. Mm-hmm. But that is kind of the nature of like people trash talking. You know, people will say, oh, look at you, little bitch. And doesn't matter what gender you are when it comes to that. I have played online games at certain points. Like I played, I don't really play online games a lot just because like I find their repetitive nature to be a little too much for me. But I have played The Last of Us online, and I've played Uncharted and Team Fortress, which is free. So, you know, obviously you're going to play it. But I have heard while people are playing, if a woman comes in and is like, hey guys, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, shut the fuck up, bitch. Yeah. But if you listen to who it is, it's usually young people. So if you want to target, you know, a group, you should probably, you know, blame, you know,
young kids who are too, like, they're still trying to figure out what's even socially acceptable anyway.
Well, they're fucking teenagers, so obviously they're rebellious, and they're just doing shit because they can.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the reasons why, like, if you ever see the ratings for online games, they can't really rate the online experience because people are people. I mean, you could just close off all communication towards people, which is what Nintendo does with their games, like Splatoon. You can't communicate with other people.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of you just play the game and have teams and stuff like that. But you have the option to turn off mics and comments and all that stuff. But
Anita Sarkeesian doesn't like options. Very explicitly. She is very anti-choice and anti-option and anti-individualism. It's frustrating. Like, just as an ideology to have. I get really frustrated with her. Oh, yeah. Something in particular that she said that I thought was hilarious when she said, like, I'm an expert. Which she doesn't quantify in any way. She's like, fact, I am an expert in video games. Which is ridiculous. She said specific number, like, I have discussed 300 video games. And I'm like, how many of those have you, like, played, though? Because when you say, like, I've discussed them, it makes it sound like I've played them. And it's fine if, like, okay, if you haven't played all 300, fine. Well, but have you played more than maybe, like, 1% of them?
Or it might be a question of, like, okay, so you've discussed 300 video games. How many of those have you played to completion?
That too.
And I will say that one thing that I actually found kind of sad was the majority of gamers don't complete games.
Yeah.
That was kind of sad to me because like I usually like to finish a game, especially when it has a story. So yeah. I mean, but I get that a lot of people buy a lot of games and they just don't get around to them.
Well, and like there's also the factor of time, and then sometimes people just like lose interest because other things get in the way. Lots of things. But I don't know. So she basically just came out with this thing trying to say like, you guys, I'm awesome. I actually am good and know what I'm doing. But she didn't do a very good job of proving it, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. And she was standing in front of an audience that really didn't give a shit about video games.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you
her
look at
audience never acts the way she wants them to. Like the female army thing. She's like, I don't have a feminist army.
That's
and
why she
like,
disables.
Yes, you do!
That's why she disables the comments too, because like her audience will never react the way she wants them to, and like does she even have a crowd? I mean, she has like a small crowd, but like I've never heard. Well, there did seem to be in our what I couldn't say speech some really vocal support of her, but that's pretty much the only thing that I've seen. We took that apart. I
think that she's supposed to have like 250,000 followers worldwide.
Okay,
possibly.
So I mean, that's a good handful, and I've heard people who supported her. And...
but that's not something I've seen. This is from I'll actually cite this. This is from a Sargon of Akkad video I saw, and he mentioned at that point like she's got like 250,000 followers around the world, but only 9,000 who follow her on Steam.
That's still a handful on Steam.
That's a handful on Steam, but like. The games she promotes do not do well at all because she's talking to a bunch of people who aren't like not like, oh, they don't fit my standard of gamers, who don't like go out and buy video games.
Yeah, and I mean,
like her stamp of approval doesn't mean much in terms of marketing. It really doesn't.
And I mean, the games are becoming more inclusive.
Well,
and we're starting to see different faces of gamers. Because, I mean, when I was growing up, I had cousins. Like, pretty much every one of my cousins had a fucking Game Boy. Like, female, male.
Yeah.
So, I didn't really grow up experiencing, like, men and women different playing games. Except, some of the girls played the games they played. It was like, wow, your parents bought this for you, didn't they?
What, like pets? Yeah.
Pets. I mean, I used to work at a game store too, and like there was, I have my biases based on my experience.
Right.
But
like here's the thing. There is 100% nothing wrong with not being a gamer. Being a casual gamer, being a hardcore gamer. And if she is a casual gamer, or if she only has like her little niche that she likes, there's nothing wrong with that. But she says like, no, but I'm an expert in all video games. I'm going to tackle the whole medium from the top down. And I'm only going to promote this certain type of game because, and not only am I only going to promote this certain kind of game, because she wants to be like, well, this is what I like right now. She's like, but if I don't like this game, it's bad because it's misogynist and I'm feminist. But if I like this game, it's because it's feminist and it's awesome. And it's like those qualifiers do not need to necessarily be hinged upon each other.
Well, and before I leave you with this mentality that I don't think that women play games, that it's not necessarily that. It's like there is a type of game that they play. It's usually like puzzle and much more about like problem solving like in the environment, which is one of the reasons why women love Zelda.
Yeah, and also that is something Tetris Anita Sarkeesian has been promoting since way before tropes versus women in video games, of like there needs to be problem solving and cooperation, which is fine. But
yeah,
and by the way,
she hasn't talked about brothers.
No,
or like Papa Yo. I think
yes,
actually she did talk about.
No, she did talk very specifically about Papa Yo. She loves that game.
Okay. I mean, there are a handful of games that, you know, cater to what she wants, and I think that in order for her to be more reputable, she needs to more vocally express that. You know, express what games are doing right to her standard, because we as a society have to listen, because like she'll just be everywhere. We can't ignore her.
Well, she will say like, well, it's important to critique the things you like, and there are a few series where, like Metroid, where she'd be like, this is a good series, but it has this problem, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a thing where,
The other M?
What?
Metroid. It's the one where she was wearing, like, that skimpy outfit the
Oh,
whole game.
yeah.
So,
no,
I mean...
I get you. No, and, like, at least she mentioned, like, no, this is a good game, it just has this issue, there's nothing wrong with that. But she's not always that not that neutral, but she's not always that forgiving or understanding. Like, I hate it when people pick apart Gods of War when it's like, God of War, sorry. Where their complaints are accurate to the source material. You know, you get to sleep with Aphrodite. She's the goddess of love. She goes around fucking a bunch of people. It's part of the mythology. It's not wrong.
And in Greek mythology, like, who doesn't fucking... You know, like, everybody fucks in Greek mythology.
Everybody fucks in Greek mythology. That's just a thing.
Is there a character in Greek mythology that doesn't fuck? Probably a fucking bad guy.
No, eunuchs. There's some eunuchs who can't fuck.
Okay.
And, like, Aphrodite's
But
wife...
were they made eunuchs, or were they eunuchs to begin with?
I think they were made eunuchs. I think that's, like, a thing. But also, Aphrodite's husband doesn't get any because he's ugly. Like, the only reason she's married is because it was, like, a... Anyway. So she goes... Since she doesn't fuck her husband, she goes around fucking everybody else. There's nothing wrong with that, but then you want to be like,
I think that is kind of fucked up.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought a lot of the sex scenes that she pointed out were just, like, funny. Like, what's wrong with having, like, playable sex scenes? It's awesome. There's nothing wrong with having inherently wrong with having a sex scene in a movie.
I mean, Ride to Hell, everybody agrees, is, like, the most misogynist bullshit. And I did kind of like that she included it in her new one, but it's like, dude, that game is, like, declared one of the worst games of all time. Like, that game is so obviously, like, bullshit in every fucking category. So for you to talk about, like, oh, this is how games are... Dude, even, like, fucking Mr. Repsion was like, yeah, this is some bullshit.
Yeah.
Like...
No, it's true. So, I mean, it just gets to be a problem where, again, this is not exclusive to her tropes versus women in video games, but when she has an agenda she's trying to push, that's when a lot of her work gets really bad. It does. When she tries to say that, like, there's straw feminism in Powerpuff Girls. I'm like, dude, that's an agenda. You, like, seriously pulled that out of your ass. Or just didn't understand the source material. Like, when she tries to say, like, Zoe Washburn is a Miss Mel character. No, she's fucking not. You either don't understand her character at all, or you're actively making shit up. But when she tries to push, like, it's an issue that you can have playable sex scenes because it treats women as rewards, or, like, it's just fucking fun. I mean, like, I'm sorry, if I would totally do interactive sex scenes, because that's fun. I mean, like, if you want to be, like, it's different when, like, you're supposed to kill them, or you're supposed to, like, you know, use them as reward, or loot their dead body, or, you know, or you're supposed to, like, just look at them as an object, that's fine. But when you can't even see the sex, and you're just having, like, an interactive playthrough, and you just, like, see background shit moving. Really? What's the problem? It's just funny.
I'm really curious to see
That's a terrible
who you
argument.
choose. I'm really curious to see who you choose as...
Oh, in Mass Effect?
In Mass Effect, yeah.
By the way, what I just said was a really terrible argument. Oh, well, why are you thinking about it too hard? Just have fun, because I disagree with that notion. I'll actively say that. That was a bad argument I just gave. But I just think it's funny. Whatever.
All right, so what do you think? What do you think of Anita Sarkeesian as a critic? What do you think of her latest video and her speech?
Her speech aside, I hope she's on the uprise. I hope she's actually, because if she's getting more people on board and she's doing better work, even if I can, like, disagree with her, I'll have more respect for her.
Also, I need to stress this, and I hope that people listening to this, there are a handful of people that can stress this, that Anita Sarkeesian needs to not have a foothold to stand on when it comes to people criticizing her. Do not use sarcasm. Do not use hostile language. Don't do any of that, because she will just use that to further her cause. We don't want that. We want her to either be discredited for the work she does, which there are, and she did address that. We need to continue to do that. And to get her to the point where she becomes credible, or we can just dismiss her and encourage somebody else who's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think
hopefully she inspires somebody to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think I probably used some sarcasm and hostile language in this video. That's a problem. Bad on me.
Thanks for listening, guys.